All right, well, it's so great to be at an actual event with people. Thank you all for coming. No, because last year, my first book, second book, whatever it is, this one came out, and there was nobody. It was like came out to an empty world. So it's really nice to see people here. I wasn't even sure this was going to happen. Lucy Sante, you know? She wrote the intro to this, Godlis Streets, and it is a really good intro. So I got really lucky. And Chris Stein, who wrote the afterword, was going to be here, but he's got some kind of blondie thing, so, that takes precedence. It's okay. We'll roll without him. And this is forward, right? Yeah. So I just put in a few pictures from the street park. Yeah, just a few pictures in case, you don't know about this one. Yeah. And
I feel like I used to know this.
that guy, yeah, because it's my picture.
You're blocking the screen.
I'm blocking the screen.
You are.
But he can't move.
It's a little
We're
late
in
for
our
my
seats.
Sorry. It's delicately
No, it's the
calibrated.
other way, because you're blocking the picture. And you just move the chair a little bit.
Moving.
And he's going to be blocking for something else. We're just in a row. Okay, so, like if it's your own picture, me, I look at it so many times, I think I know.
Yeah.
I think, I sat with these people for probably 10 minutes before I went to work having a coffee, but they're in my life forever. That's the whole thing with photography. Sorry, okay. Backwards. If you have the first book, you've seen these, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I wanted to say that on this one, Lucy wrote a great thing in the intro. He wrote this thing. I kept it for myself today. About street photography. Here it is. How do I do this? Sorry, I'm not a great moderator. Street photography has been going on for about a century and a half, give or take a few years, and has been practiced. Sorry about reading for you. And it's been practiced on every sort of way. But this thing that you write, it involves the photographer as a pedestrian among other pedestrians, which means that most eyes are at the same level, and that the street, bounded by walls, becomes a kind of a room. I love that. Sorry, I'm not as practiced at talking about it, but that just struck me when I saw that in your intro. What is street photography? People ask me, and someone the other day was like, well, it's like if you go out and you take pictures of people on the street with a camera. That's street photography. Everybody's got definitions, and some people don't like the definition street photography, right? And it's like people didn't used to like the definition punk bands. Like, oh, we're not punk. But I like the definition street photography. It just feels good to me. These are just a few from New York. Yeah, that one just keeps on giving. Which is what you hope for, right? You take it, I think this is going to be a great picture, and then it kind of duds out after a couple of years. This one's held up. It's the clown. And then I stuck this in with baseball. A little baseball nostalgia. Fenway Park. And you had another great thing you said about this, but I'm not going to quote it. But it was about this guy's, I had to look it up, Google it, about trichoperm?
Trichoperm. Is anybody familiar with that term?
No.
It was something men did to their hair in the 1970s. It had a glossy kind of helmet-like quality. And you see it in the guy on the left. I think Phil Spector might have one.
I found this when I went back to the negatives years later. I was like, oh, look at those wise guys. How did I even go up to them and take a picture? Because I was so naive in Boston, which is a lot tougher town sometimes than New York. And I just naively, I'll get a picture of these guys.
Is this like Sante?
No, that's outside Fenway Park.
Oh.
On opening day, I just was, looking for things going on outside Fenway. Guys eating hot dogs, but this was a strange scene. 1976, probably. No, 74 or 5. This is another one that kind of resonates. Bob, this is the Statue of Liberty information booth. I think I went there because of your picture of John Lennon, looking for a Statue of Liberty picture. This is what I ended up with. This is 74, and it's probably, it's an early good picture. Now to the book, which this is probably 3 months before the picture I just showed. And this book to me is kind of the first time I figured out, though you don't really figure it out, how to take good pictures. I came back from that 10-day trip to Miami Beach, and that's what this book is.
Were you always planning to make a book of it?
Early on, like 2 years later, I was in CBGB's.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I was like, these are pictures before I thought they were pictures before I knew what I was doing. And in the end, I realized, like what I just said, they were my first good pictures. I just didn't have I loved them because they were Miami Beach, because I'm Jewish. And I thought I sort of struck a chord, but I didn't think I'd strike a chord. Punk struck a different chord.
Right. And also, these kind of pictures really benefit from time rolling on, and suddenly it looks like a very foreign country. And at the time, it was just us or your grandparents or whatever,
I had been there. I think it comes up here, but I had been there as a kid. Where is it? And I wanted to show you this, Lucy, because this is like my grandfather. My grandfather had a Polaroid camera, one of those old big ones that you wipe the thing to keep it from fading.
Right.
And that's my grandmother in the background.
And that's a fish you caught?
That's a fish I caught. I'm fishing with my grandfather. My grandmother was getting ready to scale it. And I want to think my grandfather took the picture, but as much as I don't want to have to say it, I think my mother did. I want to give her the credit, but I do think she had a pretty good eye. I like the way the picture is structured. It's not just me with a fish. There's a lot of structure to it. I'm not sure she took that one, but I like me in that.
Yeah.
That's my dad lying down.
It's a really great attitude.
Yeah, I didn't always have that attitude for a camera. I was well behaved, but that day I wasn't. I like looking. I saw you posted pictures of yourself as a kid this week, right, on Instagram.
Right.
And so I love looking at these things and as artifacts or as
Clues to the future personality.
Yeah. What? Because I don't remember myself back then that well. I remember Miami Beach. I remember really certain things about the beach, and buying soda at the beach and the rocks near the beach. But I don't remember a lot. So this helps. And you're a photo archival expert of these kind of ephemera. And there's some great stuff in the book. I had such a long time.
Oh,
The people would be the times for the love song.
right.
But there's some great pieces in there that Lucy writes about photo ephemera. Okay. And then Miami Beach, I wanted to say that like Miami Beach is like a schlock, kitsch place. And so this is Betty Page's in this postcard. And so you get the feeling for Florida from these postcards. You know, like, I don't know who's sending this to somebody unless you're a punk sending it to your friend. But it sort of unveils like the whole Miami Beach and Jewish humor. You know, this like how to kick the bucket gracefully. You know, and there's just a lot of humor in Miami Beach. Was kind of a rat pack kind of area in the '60s, and so these postcards sort of unveiled what Miami Beach was for me.
I mean, you know, Miami Beach kind of started as a scam. You know, these scam artists, Addison, I can't remember his name, but there was a whole thing with collusion between railroads and architects, and you know, and also that's, you know, when they started like selling plots of land that were in, you know, in the swampland, the Everglades, and you know, it's the whole aura of Florida always had a lot of flim-flam about it, going back at least as far as the 1920s.
Yeah, it doesn't really go back that far, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Florida being developed isn't that long ago.
Right, yeah, because before that it was like yellow fever, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I started going down there by train the first time I went down.
Oh.
Because I go by train with my mother and to visit my grandparents, and that was like a full day ride. And then at some point there were not jets but propeller planes.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother didn't like flying, so she put me on a propeller plane with her brother. And then, you know, where they had the bags, because in case you threw up and everything.
Right.
And so I keep attaching all this stuff to Miami Beach, and some of it's in the intro, not that gruesome story. And this, even the humor went to the dining, Wolfie's restaurant. Because he's a wolf, but he could be an alligator.
And based on the wolf in Tex Avery cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cartoonish too.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk about like what pictures were influencing me at the time. Diane Arbus. These pictures were taken in 1974. This monograph, I apologize for the crooked photo taking, but it kind of is kind of nice. So I left it that way. The lines aren't even, but this, Diane Arbus died in 71, in the summer of 71, and then by the end of 72, they were organized and put together the whole book that nobody had seen, all her work. So by the end of 72, I was in photo school in Boston, and I came down to New York to see that show at the Museum of Modern Art. Did you see that show?
I believe I did, yeah.
There was long lines, and it was a whole cultural experience. But I was in Florida taking these pictures in January of 74, so it's not more than a year after I first saw these Diane Arbus pictures. So they are deeply influential on anything I did. And I just pulled out a few. And I remember thinking, like, well, Diane Arbus has freaks, I don't know those. Well, my father kind of worked the circus every once in a while because he was a musician. So I didn't have, I was going to get freaks, and I wasn't going to get, what's the other thing she had a lot of? Anyway, but she had a lot of Jewish people. So I said, that I got. Because when I got that book, I just was like, oh my God, can you do this?
I was thinking, like, how did she get these people to, like, not hit her over the head with a book?
Right. We didn't know any of the stories. I mean, she was dead. She had committed suicide, and you know, the stories slowly came out. And these pictures just came as full blast in 1972, end of 72.
Yeah.
And then Winogrand, of course. I was a big fan of Winogrand. And it was all about, like, for me, the bit of humor and the bit of how do you get this picture on the street? And I just pulled out a few that influenced me. The Animals book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that, you know, I mean, artists in Wintergreen, I mean, they're street photographers, but other than that, in a way, they don't have a lot in common, except the way your selection you've made, there's a lot of humor in these pictures.
That's what I saw that between the three of them, Arbus, Friedlander, and Winogrand, they did vary in the types of book pictures they took, but they did meet with humor.
Yes.
And then Walker Evans, of course, who even at that time, I was too young to understand the complicated Walker Evans pictures, but something like this I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Frank, of course, and I'm just picking out the ones that were a little bit simpler and a little bit, that obviously was humorous. And my father played that instrument, so I can relate.
Is that euphonium?
A baritone, I think it is, but it might be a euphonium. I don't know. But he played every brass instrument. That's what he did professionally. So when I saw this in Robert Frank, I go like, oh, Dad, look at this. That's the Robert Frank one in Miami Beach.
That's the one that Jack Carroll
Yeah.
yeah.
The elevator operator, right?
Like, stole my heart or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
St. Petersburg, I think that is. Some famous benches that old people sit on. And then Friedlander. This is actually the back cover of his new book, which I bought here yesterday or the day before, which is all pictures of people taking pictures. And Cartier Bresson. And I'm showing a lot of pictures in our line. So we're getting a photography class here. They're very simple. I could attempt a simple composition, even though it's not really simple.
Right.
So here I am with my cover. And I found out when I posted this on Instagram that somebody, only last year, somebody wrote, these are Oliver Goldsmith sunglasses. Did you know that?
I noticed that in your text, and I thought, how do you know that?
I didn't know it. I took the picture 40 years ago and knew it last year. And someone said, did you know those are the same glasses that Mary and Faithful and Brian Jones? And I'm going like, no wonder I chased her across the country. I didn't know.
I remember
that.
this from the time. I used these from rock star pictures because they made everybody look like an insect.
Yeah. And so now I look at her and I go, if you look, when you see the book and I go to the next picture, you'll see a lot of them are taken down in South Beach, what became South Beach down on Ocean Drive. But she's up near the Bass Art Museum, a little bit further uptown from there. And I wonder now, especially knowing where she got what the sunglasses were, she seems different than the rest of the people.
Yeah.
And I wonder if she's a performer. You know, she's more in the Diane Arbus vein. Like I'm photographing, not a performer at home with her stuff, but in the parking lot walking her dog as a performer, as a striptease person. You know, does she work in the nightclubs?
Yeah.
She just looks different than the other people I photographed, and I think that's kind of why she stands out.
And Miami Beach was kind of rivaled Vegas at the time, which it isn't really now. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely, there were nightclubs.
Yeah.
I went down there, I remember seeing the Supremes in a nightclub.
Whoa.
But you had to go to a nightclub, you know, and so yeah, and I tell the story in the book that in 1964 I was visiting my grandparents who lived near the 5th Street gym, which is down near where South Beach is now. And I asked my mother if she could take me to see, we could go to see Cassius Clay was training. We didn't see him train, but he came down the steps of the gym with his cane going, I am the greatest, and there's a William Klein movie of Muhammad Ali, and for the Muhammad Ali documentary that was on PBS, they used a lot of footage from the William Klein, and then it shot right where I was standing.
Wow.
And I got his autograph as Cassius Clay. And then he won the fight and changed his name. You just wonder how you end up in certain places. Visiting your grandparents. Yeah. She's definitely different than this person. She's from a different scene. I just would take a walk up and down the beach, and
Are they telling you not to, don't take that picture?
they're telling me something, and I'm photographing them before I apologize or do something else, because I don't know, it was impulsive. And then later, the two on the right let me take that picture.
Oh, good. But he's in the federal witness program.
Good disguise.
I like how the poodle has situated himself in the little bit of shade.
Yeah, it's just, I always think I just got lucky. I don't know if I could do that again.
So beautiful. Example of Miami Beach merchandise.
She wants a mate. That's one way. This one I won't really tell you about. Except that I was trying to take another picture. And the whole roll of film is me trying to take another picture. And then I turned to my right, and that was there.
Why are they standing on the bench?
I can tell you, but you don't want to know. There's an answer. But believe me, you'll be happier for the rest of your life if you don't know. No, I'm not here. You send me some money. But really, it's much better not to know. It's like, like if Bob Dylan told you how he took it. Not like it's just I got lucky with that picture. This, Tish and Snooki are here. I just think like this reminds me of CBGB's Yiddish American Broadway. There's a whole lot of what's going on in Miami Beach that sort of fit with what we were doing down in CBGB's, especially with there's a lot of Jewish humor involved. And this place, I found out later, Prince made his nightclub in there, in Miami Beach. And also, as an aside, this awning fell apart and corroded probably like 5 years after I took the picture.
Oh man. Did you actually go see shows?
No, I wish I did. I really wish I did. I was too busy taking pictures outdoors. I don't think I knew yet how to take pictures indoors.
Well, there's the nighttime too.
Yeah, later I figured that out. But I things that you wish you did, I really wish I did. And this was going on in several theaters in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Movie theaters would have, make extra money having Yiddish films, Yiddish live performances.
They might have Yiddish films too.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I have close-ups of like what's playing there.
He's come from Fenway Park.
It looks like he's in another world too. I like mixing words and stuff in pictures. That always I'm a frustrated, wanted to be a writer guy. That when I got a camera, like I went to school for English literature and thought I wanted to be a writer. And then I met a lot of people who knew how to write really well, and went, you don't quite have it together yet. And then I got a camera, and it started. But when I started taking pictures, the words went in.
Yes.
I went, well, that kind of writing I could do. A lot of sunglasses. I like this guy smoking right next to me. That's the Miami Aquarium, where Flipper was. Flipper gives shows up. Sort Flipper.
You have to explain to them, it's not Flipper the band.
No. That would have been a good double bill.
It's a King Canute holding back the waves.
I went right out there.
Yeah, you know about King Canute, who brought his throne out to the ocean and ordered the waves to recede. He was one of the those Danish kings that ruled England before the Norman conquest. Anyway, it used to be familiar to all.
This is why you're here. You need this information. You know, a little bit of Florida and a little bit of Robert Frank.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's like the comic rejoinder to the
Yeah.
yeah.
A little less serious.
Yeah. Look at those insulin prices, huh?
You know, it's like everybody's been putting on my Instagram. Look at what the prices are, and there's like a whole Instagram group of people that want to change. Did they pass my picture on to people that want to change, get insulin prices down?
Oh, and look at her bag is advertising lemon twist, which are these cigarettes, a little capsule of lemon extract or something that you'd like break with your finger and it would flavor the cigarette with lemon. They did all kinds of crazy shit with cigarettes in the 70s.
I like this just because it's an interesting composition, but that gun and the plaque behind it, that whatever you call that, have been moved. Because back in the back left of that picture is now a brand new police station. It was built, I think, around the time of Miami Vice. Because I went back in the 80s and there was a brand new sparkling, like Miami Vice looking police station, and they moved the gun and the plaque over there. Just in case you get confused, don't use my book as a guidebook.
Well, those nose guards.
That's the thing. Where did nose guards?
I haven't seen those in donkey's years.
This is just for the architecture, but it leads into this,
Yeah.
which Hoffman's Cafeteria, I think, became a nightclub, like a China club or something like that. But Frank Sinatra in front of Hoffman's Cafeteria in the movie Hole in the Head, directed by Frank Capra. That somehow morphed into my life. I don't know whether you like Elmore Leonard.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like a super fan of Elmore Leonard. And the first book I ever got of his was this, on a trip to Miami. I went with Eileen, who's sitting over there, in 1984. And I said, let's go look where I took these pictures in 1974, and we'll see all the people. And we went, and they were gone. And of course, how dumb am I, you know? It's 10 years later, they're gone. But other stuff had happened, the Mariel boat lift, aging. But this book that I bought for a beach read is about, La Brava is about a photographer with a Leica who photographs the elderly people in the Ocean Drive area. And I'm like, wait, that's me. And it mentions Winogrand on the first page, I think. Probably why I bought it. And then the subplot of it is the movie Hole in the Head being filmed at the Cardozo Hotel. And there's a film noir actress, Edward G. Robinson is Frank Sinatra's brother. Frank Sinatra runs the hotel. Carolyn Jones sits up in the window playing bongos because he loves Carolyn Jones, but he's got another Eleanor Parker who he's going to marry. If his brother, if he marries her brother will give him money. And it's a whole plot. But the film noir, in La Brava, there's a film noir actress who's aging, who befriends the photographer who's photographing the elderly people. So
You thought that was going to happen to you.
I was married at the time. But no, it just seemed like a great plot, and then and it had a whole bunch of the other character in the book, La Brava, keeps talking about, oh, they filmed a movie down here, and this is what happened on the set, and this is what happened here, and this is where Frank Sinatra was, and everybody came to the Cardozo, and I took this picture in '92 when I went back 10 years later, and yeah, that's like a book of them before the movie, I guess. So I went back in '92, and Eileen, my wife, and I stayed at the Cardozo Hotel on the cheap. It was like about $30, $40 a night, because the Cardozo Hotel, which is now owned by, what's her name? The singer from Miami. Gloria Estefan. Gloria Estefan, and it's all spruce stuff. We stayed there for like $30, $40 a night. And we rented a VCR at Blockbuster and watched Hole in the Head in the hotel where it was filmed. That's how obsessed I am. So, that's my story at the Cardozo Hotel. There she is with the bongos. I think before the Munsters. The Addams Family. Was she the Munsters or the Addams Family? Addams Family.
In which he plays basically a beatnik.
Yeah. She's a beatnik to Frank Sinatra. She's like sitting in the window going, why are you going being such a bad, come with me up here in the window. And that's me at the Cardozo in '92. And you can see there's like nobody there. I mean, we had the place to ourselves, and that's '92 in South Beach.
My one visit to Miami Beach was around that time and had the same experience. And yeah, I don't know if it was a Cardozo, but it was one of those Art Deco hotels, and it was like, yeah, it's like their clientele had died off at that point, and it was before the new terrifying clientele came in.
Yeah, it was pre that. Because I know I had pictures of us in the breakfast room in the upstairs hotel. And there's nobody there but us, and it was definitely a complimentary breakfast. Okay, now on to the pictures. There's my Wolfie's lady. The fashions.
Yeah.
My grandmother wore those clothes. With crazy designs. It was like they were taking acid. You don't want to do that. He's playing it safe. He is. So those are the ladies that you said, did they?
Oh.
They did let me take a picture.
They look very different.
And
Attitudes.
yeah, they were new. They were getting their picture.
That's
The
right.
last one they didn't.
They had to get their hair done first.
They all wore, like they got dressed up to go to the beach, right? They got dressed up to go to the beach. They got their hair done. I don't imagine they put bathing suit caps on. They look a little bit to me like the twins in Diane Arbor's picture.
Yeah.
I got old twins. She's not so happy.
Well, her reading is in trouble.
Yes. I like that she's sideways to the beach. She's like not facing the water and not facing the other direction.
But she's facing the sun.
Yeah, she must be lighting up her book. She's probably going to get cataracts. And that's a long time ago, and cataracts were a big deal. She's saying, what are you taking my picture for? Got picture for, which means, please take my picture. Why are you taking my picture? They all were like,
Children.
they were like, when my granddaughter's coming next week, are you going to be here? And that was my in. I was like, no, I'm not going to be. She'd love you. If you stay around, let me, and that got me from one person to the next person to the next
You were
person.
the perfect age for this.
I lucked in,
Yeah.
and I went with it. I went right with it. It was like free pass. But I'm still amazed that I got so many pictures in 10 days. That to me is the thing. I came back from that trip and people said to me in photography school, I was, the proof sheets were coming out of the wash. And people were like, how did you get all these pictures? There were 60 proof sheets from 10 days. I'll let you do the math, 36 on a row. And I said, I don't know. And I didn't. But I figured out that I said, whatever I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know what I did, which was basically nothing. Don't think.
But you had the right at you magnetized your eye, and like you were ready, and the pictures came to you because you were ready for them.
Well, you see all the pictures I showed you before, right? Those were swimming in my head.
Yeah.
Arbus, Winogrand, Friedlander.
Right.
It was like, but I didn't. I remember Winogrand saying something, and I kept it in my head while I was in Florida that time. That be aware of, concentrate on what's inside the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's in those 4 lines is the only thing that's in the picture, so concentrate on that. And it's really kind of simple, but I did. I made sure that every time I put the camera up to my eye, I concentrated on what was in the frame as opposed to what's in front of me. Like if I take a picture of this whole room, when you put the camera up, it's not the whole room anymore. It's just what's in the frame. And so somehow that got me through the 10 days.
And it's also this uncanny thing that you can't explain. But I know for me, when I set about researching a subject, if I'm passionate enough about what I'm doing, the research will come to me. I will find it on street corners. It will come in the mail. I mean, it's just crazy. And this is a version of the same thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Strange, isn't it? But it works.
Yeah.
That place is one of the places I photographed on Ocean Drive that's gone. Everything else is pretty much there, but this one, the Miami Herald came to me once for this picture. He said, I heard you have a picture of the White House. Doesn't anybody else? No. Then I went to the dog tracks, which were down near like 3rd Street on Ocean Drive. And I got up a few pictures before they told me I couldn't take pictures.
The same logo was great on the bus.
It looks like it, yeah.
Is that the same place?
Same place, yeah. Before they stopped me, I was working through plexiglass or something near them. And then there was a pier nearby. That's gone too. Also down near 3rd Street. It was way down at the base of South Beach. And where they're looking out to is now condominiums and gigantic complexes. That's the very bottom of Miami Beach.
Those white bells are going to make a comeback.
Yeah, you can't make it up.
That's the second, it's like, what I'm trying to say. You don't see it the first time you look at it, it takes another look.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't want to you print pictures, and then you wait to see which ones hold up.
Mhm.
And if they don't hold up, they get edited out. Like Winogrand, I took a seminar with Winogrand, and people show their pictures, and people really want you to like their pictures, like they want him to like their pictures. And they go, and he'd go, they go, well, what do you think of this one? He goes, it doesn't make it. He goes, well, but don't you think this one? He goes, it doesn't make it. That should make it. And then I remember one person, because they printed small on a big piece of paper, like left a lot of white around it. And he goes, what's with your precious little pictures? Don't you want to use the whole paper? He was just very funny and very direct, obviously. Okay, this is interesting. I wanted to see your take on this. This is 74, obviously in the moment. And it's somebody that's now our age, like protesting.
And she's on
She's on Lincoln Road. She's on Lincoln Road. Huh?
She's in a well-trafficked street.
It's a mall. It's a walking mall of several blocks. And but when I went back to the proof sheets, I realized there were more people.
Oh.
And these people were serious, right?
Yeah.
And then I read an Abby Hoffman biography recently, and didn't remember that the Democratic and Republican conventions were both in Miami Beach in 1972.
Oh, wow.
And so this is 2 years later.
Yeah.
And Abby Hoffman apparently went down there and like mobilized all these people
Mm-hmm.
during the Nixon years.
But it's also, I mean, this one, the wording and all, it suggests like this is old leftist from the Lower East
Right.
Side from the 1930s.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because here's another. Because I saw the Nixon one, and obviously that stood out to me, but when I went back to the proof sheet, I went, wow, look at all these different, look how many things they're for.
And Chile, that had just happened 4 months earlier.
Right. These are all January 74. And that's the same mall that they were on.
Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd, yeah. Remember there was an ad for, it wasn't Christy Brinkley, it was Cindy,
Crawford.
not Cindy Crawford, it was one of those models that did ads for Camden. And she would go like, I don't know the difference between an F stop and a bus stop or something. But yeah, she was the Kodak girl, Cindy Shepherd, Sybil Shepherd. And this is another one I wonder, like, remember the Instamatic cameras? When I look at this, I go like, those look like his eyes, right? The lenses and the viewfinder.
They had a kind of spy camera appeal.
Yeah, it was just very, and they had a good name, Instamatic.
Yes.
But it wasn't a good camera. It was like, it wouldn't stay stable. When you pushed it, it moved, and all your pictures were out of focus. But it had a cassette, like a music
That's
cassette.
right,
He's giving me, and again, the Freelander book is like this, people taking pictures. Like the cake song.
yeah.
What it says on the other side of that bush is, I tried this several times. I don't know if I can do that, but I did on this. On the other side of that bush, it says kosher cuisine.
You two can have a body like mine.
Yeah. You can get the sandwich for what, $1.10, and the blood pressure for another $1. That's further up, like where Surfside is now, or a little bit further up in Miami, like uptown Miami Beach.
So the last bits of that Orientalist fantasy, you know, which beginning in the 19th century, and but it looks like they've been hijacked from a Christmas crash.
It does. And these were like, there's a scene in Hole in the Head, which I recently rewatched, where Frank Sinatra drives up the strip down there where these hotels, and they're all kind of named after Arabic fantasies. That's just a little bit different.
There's three variegated businesses there. It reminds me of the place, there's a strip mall on Route 17 in New Jersey that it's not that way anymore, alas, but it was fish, glass, and cigars. Perfect balance at home.
Again, those outfits. They remind me like when I was in Japan, in Shibuya. They stand on the corner and everybody walks at the same time when the light changes. If you're from New York, you're like, oh man, these people are so well behaved. The thing, this one is the pair of shoes. They must belong to that band. But the person left without their shoes.
Maybe some memorials of the party.
It's a concept piece.
Right.
This one I was trying to be Lee Friedlander. I didn't know how he did it, and I still don't. But for one moment I got it.
Yes.
And that thing of, what are those stones that they make over the
They look fake.
Are they turned over, in half a boulder? And I don't know what it is.
And the white picket fence is just perfect.
Yeah, because I would walk to South Beach, to where South Beach is, where Ocean Drive is, and I'd pass a bunch of these houses and just kind of photograph them. There was a lot to photograph in Florida. That's the timestamp.
Yeah.
Still there.
Really?
It's digital now. I photographed it over the years. It wasn't digital until like recently.
Right.
But I think it's digital temperature and digital date. And people still go there and take their picture in front of it. It's on Ocean Drive.
Goodyear blimp.
Goodyear blimp. That was like the big thing in Florida. This is the ocean coral wall that I remember really well. I remember being that height. And Elmore Leonard in La Brava describes it very well.
Is this not like that anymore?
No, it is still like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's still like that. That wall is still there. Just like that.
Yeah, I had to do a thing in Palm Beach, of all places, a few years ago. They have a wall like that.
Do they?
Yeah.
It's a Florida thing, right?
Yeah.
The end of Worth Avenue.
What's that?
At the end of Worth Avenue, there's that.
Oh, there's Bob. You
From
know.
all the way up.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of like those walls that they have in New England, right? They build out whatever the stuff is that's there. That the Indians built, or I think I'm there. This is the hook. You can get it right here. This is the other hook, which is sort of getting low.
Mm.
And I have two of Lucy's books, but I don't have the one you can buy today. And that's it. So I don't know what's next. If you have any questions, I can answer, or if you don't, I won't.
What's your next project?
I don't know.
Good question.
Well, my next project is always something I did 90 years ago. I work backwards. I start, but each book is 10 years before the last one.
Yes,
Yes.
question.
Oh, I got one right here first, and then we'll come over.
So this is really interesting. You were like 24, I guess, when you went there, right?
I was
So-
like 24.
Yeah, because you were born in 51, I see. I looked at your bio there.
Yes.
This strikes me to ask you, and then I'll say to everyone else. Have you seen this documentary on Netflix called The Last Resort?
Yeah.
And did you know those? I wrote it down.
No, I didn't know them.
Andy Sweet and Gary Monroe.
No.
This is so interesting that you were there about the same time that they were really.
I was there before them.
Okay, well, because the documentary, you saw it though.
I saw it. They were there in the late 70s.
Okay, because I thought they were doing it from like the early 70s, like you, no?
No.
Okay, but not
I'm
too.
first.
Okay, but I'm glad you saw it. It was very interesting, wasn't it?
It was very interesting.
Because just to see the decay of the old, because I'm Jewish like you, to see that old guard, that whole world sort of just fall away.
It's an interesting documentary to watch, and it's an interesting story who each of those photographers are. And I'll leave it at that. I found out about them when I was down there. I was in Florida, like Palm Beach. I had a small show, and I have a guy that collects my photographs in Florida. Well, the guy goes and says, "Yeah, I like your punk pictures, but I really like your Miami pictures." Well, he's a lawyer in Florida. And he took me to the History Miami Museum, and they were getting ready to put that show together.
Oh,
And so I heard about it,
I'm glad you saw it. It was.
and then I watched the documentary later to find out what the show was they were putting together, and it was the same area I photographed. And but they did it more in color. I don't know. I'll leave it to you to watch.
Yeah.
I think one of those two photographers is particularly better than the other.
It's called The Last Resort on Netflix, and I just want to
Right.
compliment you for being there at a time, like I say, when the old Miami Jewish, kind of like the Catskills, it's like that whole era and that whole ethos was really just dying out, literally, and you were there just at that cusp. That's a really interesting time to be
Well,
there.
sometimes you're in the right place at the right time.
So they have historical value for
And
that.
sometimes you have a camera and you take pictures.
Yeah.
And
What kind of
sometimes
camera did you use for all these?
Pentax spot mount.
Okay, the same for all of them.
All of them. I'm not a gear guy.
And that was the Tri-X film, by the way.
Wait a minute, we're getting too nerdy.
That's the last thing.
Yeah, it was Tri-X film.
Exactly.
Developed in D76.
Right. It's good. Good.
Agents.
Very nice.
Next.
Yeah, I was also wondering about you being a younger person, right? Being in your early
I was.
Yeah, being in your early 20s and photographing people who are sort of more like the age that you are now. And I'm not
It's
gonna
weird, yeah.
say that they're-
It's bizarre.
But I was wondering about the process of being closer to that age and revisiting these photos all these years
That's
later.
certainly part of it. It definitely occurred to me as I was, look, I've lived with the pictures for a long time, but one thing nobody told me when I went to photography school was you have to outlive your pictures. They forgot to tell me that. Like for my kind of pictures. Some people, they get famous right away with the stuff they're doing. The stuff I do tends to take time. And,
It's like a fine wine.
yeah, I don't know. WHINE. But they don't tell you that. And so, even with the punk pictures, the same deal. You have to sort of, these pictures looked good to me when I took them. They looked great to me. And my mother was like, all these people would love to have a copy of their picture. I'm like, I didn't take their name. That's not the kind of pictures I take. I'm not taking the picture to sell it to them. It occurred to me that as I got older, and still I didn't have a book out of these pictures, or I didn't have any place to really go except show them to friends before Instagram, I was starting to get to be the age of the people I was taking pictures of. And I thought it was interesting. It was not interesting in terms of the picture, but interesting in terms of who were these people when I photographed them. They were like as interesting as I feel like we of the age I am now. I sort of got that when I was a kid. I thought I was photographing old elderly Jews, but when people would come visit my parents, I'd go, those are elderly Jews. They're oddballs. I'm going out to the club. But then I got to be the age, and I went, at least I'm still, they seem to me to be pretty interesting characters when I think about it now. So yeah, don't worry, you'll get there. Vikram.
One of the things I admire about you is that even though you took these pictures 40 years ago, you know, you really didn't know that technology was going to help you out this way, where you could pull this trigger and get these books out because of the technology and self-empowerment that you got because of that. Because, you know, other publishers ignored you. You've been known for a long time. Nobody gave you that opportunity, even though you were known by many, many people, and you kind of had to run with it on your own at this age and learn technology late in life when most people are.
I don't think I learned it that late in life. I mean, Vikram works at the Apple store.
No, but
And
I
we
I
talk
see
to
all
each
the
other
images,
sometimes.
and,
Yeah.
and so I complimented you the first time, but that, you know, you're.
But I definitely, there was a point, and it was in the 90s, when those IMAX came out, the first kind of bubble-colored IMAX, that I took pictures for this place called, what was it called? They had an office on Broadway and Houston, and the guy hired me to take pictures of the Coney Island sideshow. And he said they were pictures of the sideshow, and he had this thing that was online, and I didn't know what he was talking about. And I forget the name of it was one of the first, before AOL and all those things. Anyway, I took the pictures on an analog camera, and I brought the box of 8x10s in, and there were a bunch of kids sitting at terminals, and they must have scanned them, and I went home, and a day later, they sent me an email, and I still had a dial-up modem, and the pictures showed up on my little iMac, and I went, wow, I got to figure out how to do that. And it was way too expensive to figure out how to do that, but it was the beginning of me starting to realize that this was a way of getting around going to editors who didn't want to publish my pictures, or what to do with all these extra pictures I had that and so it just built up from there. Yeah, and I would say, so that was I was in my 40s. And so I started going to that Apple store in Soho, and I started to take courses on how to write, make a website. Because I saw that as the future, yeah. It did free me up, but you can get pictures to people that you wouldn't normally get to people. They wouldn't get out there. The things opened up. I thank Steve Jobs for that. I'm telling you.
You're running with all that.
Yeah, well, it's just a natural progression, you know, because the technology keeps getting easier and more accessible, and I tried to keep up with it, and then Instagram helped me get this book deal. Because these, when I put them up on Instagram, 2019? Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was in a depressed state, and I just started putting my pictures. I said, I'm gonna put some of my street pictures up. Like everybody likes my punk pictures. I'm gonna put some of my street pictures up. Nobody sees those. I know the world had changed and that people were liking street photography. I missed that because it was happening somewhere I didn't see it. And then I got on Instagram and I started posting my street pictures, like in 2019 spring, like 2 a day. I said, I'll pick 2 out, I'll scan them, I'll put them up. People will like this one, I don't know if they'll like that one. And then people started responding. And then after about a week, I went, I'm live editing. Because people would go, oh, it's a great one. I go, yeah, I didn't know they liked it. I put up one, I go, I'm not going to like that. And somebody goes, that's the best picture you ever took. And so it was like a freedom. And I did that for like a few weeks. And then I heard from Real Art Press. And they said, if you don't do your street book with us, we're going to be really upset. That's how it happened. Right?
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
You go like, you can't make that stuff. Right? And it's a good story when you're sitting here with a book.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, freed me up. Okay, somewhere back there.
After you were intrigued with all these crazy scenes that You didn't have the slightest urge to do any close-ups to see if more craziness would unfold?
Do close-up, say it again?
You didn't, like, I know when I photograph scenes that are wacky,
Right.
I then want to zero in on certain things that were even crazier, that you didn't notice in the whole setting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Maybe I do that. I don't know. I don't know what I do sometimes. You know, like my kid, her boyfriend was a photographer. Well, not a photographer. He was going to photography. He was taking photography classes at Newport's. And she met him, and he said, and I did my Kickstarter like a few years ago. Like, boy, your dad really knows what he's doing. And she said, I don't think my dad really does that. I wouldn't follow him for a life course. You know, she set her boyfriend straight, and she was right. You know, like I noodle around and I get where I need to go, but that's just my style.
Leon.
Oh,
David, in your book, you talk about that you were trying to figure out why you went to Florida in 1742 to figure out how to take pictures, or paraphrasing from the book. And as you were talking, it seemed like earlier in your life, your grandparents and your mother were very supportive of your curiosity when you went there and figuring out to go to the gym where Cassius Clay was, where the Beatles were the day before. Do you feel like there was a connection that you were going there particularly because it had
yes and no.
been for you before?
Yes and no, because they were supportive to a point. Leon I grew up with, so he knows me, but my father more than my mother. My mother was a typical Jewish mother. Like, yeah, I don't think that's such a good idea. But she did support me to a point, and my grandfather definitely didn't support me. Who I was visiting, you know, like he was like, "You're going to be a doctor." This is like Jewish stuff. I mean, it's like, you know, pretty traditional in Jewish families. You know, you're gonna be a doctor. I said, no. He Blanche, to my mother. Blanche, you hear what he says? He's not gonna be a doctor. Take care of him. And I enjoyed getting him annoyed. So there was support, and there wasn't support as there is in Jewish families. It's like tosses between loving you and urging you to not do that.
And how were the pictures received when you showed them back in Boston?
To my family? To when I first shot him?
At the end of the first, weren't you still there? Or?
Say that again? Oh, the museum, the History Museum, the Miami Museum? That's sort of, you know, my own personal take on it. I'm not sure, but I am doing a event next week in Miami with the head of the History Miami Museum. So I guess they were received okay. You know, everything's timing sometimes. You know, I brought them pictures of Miami Beach in 1974, and they were already putting together a group show of pictures of Miami Beach in 1979. And I was sort of going, ooh, you know, but if you're late for something, you're usually early for the next thing. You know, like, well, I missed that one, but, you know, if I stick around, they'll come back again.
So when